Hey, it's another week, another recipe, and today, in an attempt to make my family some snacks, I stumbled on an interesting little muffin from 1942. Come join me. Hey everyone, welcome back to my kitchen. My name is Courtney Morris and I cook histories, forgotten recipes out of random cookbooks I find, sometimes websites, sometimes viewer submissions. Today we are headed back to a 1940s cookbook that I have on hand, and I hope it's going to be good. It's one of those ones that are kind of like, could be. But we're going to try it out. If you're new here, thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoy the video and stay till the end, and I hope you enjoy it so much that you decide to join the community with us. We have a lot of fun here. And if you're coming back for more, my utmost thanks for your support. Please drop me a message in the comments. I would love to hear from you. All right, let's get started. Okay, so once again, my apologies if camera / lighting / videography is a little wonky. I'm still learning my camera. It's gonna take some time. And my stupid light bulb for my light that offsets the skylight is still not here. So bear with me, I'm gonna cook anyways. Today we are headed back to 1942 in my Searchlight recipe book because I found a recipe for popcorn muffins. And so backing up a little bit, I have this cake tray that I used to use. I have cake on all the time. Then we ended up with sugar issues in my family and it just sat on my shelf, and I did my yearly clean out a little bit ago for donation shops and stuff, and I just couldn't get rid of it. So I've been filling it with like croissants from like the grocery store bakery, or like little treats and things, but I prefer to do something homemade now that I've got time and our May schedule has finally died down. So I want to make something a little more homemade and at least know what's in it, whether it's healthy or not. So I figured maybe this week we could do popcorn muffins, whatever that is. I've never heard of these before. This is one of the things I like about Searchlight. It was like one of the first like Reader's Digest kind of publication. It's a household magazine, had a division called the Searchlight Recipe Book, and it was open to everybody to be able to send in recipes. And then the team, there was a cooking team at Searchlight that tried and tested, and the very best ones that they thought went in the book. So there's a mix of submitted recipes and things that the household Searchlight came up with themselves, which I've tried a few and they're not bad. This one is from a Ms. Grace Vile Gray from Glen Ellen, Illinois. So Grace, if you are still up and out there, I hope I do this recipe some justice for you, because apparently Searchlight thought it was good enough to publish. So let's go. Okay, so it first tells me to start with 1.5 cups of flour, but the instructions say sift flour, then measure it, then sift it again, but with the baking powder, salt, and sugar. And a lot of times your old recipes will tell you to do this because sometimes your flour can get chunks in it and your measurements will be a little different than what it actually calls for. I had the Walmart special of a flour sifter and it died a long time ago, so I am just going to use a wire sieve, which works just fine. I think it's not as fine as a flour sifter, but it'll do. And so now I need to measure out, I need 3 bowls for this. I'm just gonna use this. I need to measure out 1.5 cups. And one thing with measuring flour is do not pack it down. That's one of the ways that people's cakes turn dense, is they just pack the flour in. It should just be a loose accumulation, for lack of a better word. I'm just gonna stick this back in here. Okay, so now I need my sifter again. I'm going to put in my actual mixing bowl, and I need to sift it with the baking powder, salt, and sugar. And all this does is makes it mush together, just so there's not like little random pockets of salt or baking powder, just because it does happen if you don't mix it well enough. And so we're going to do 3 teaspoons of baking powder and a teaspoon of salt. I hope these turn out. I'm not entirely sure what this flavor is supposed to be. There's nothing sweet really about it. It does call for a tablespoon of sugar. And I know I mentioned that we can't really do sugar in my family, but for the entire recipe, 1 tablespoon of sugar isn't going to cause too much of an issue. It's really more of when you get down to like the really concentrated sugars like donuts or cakes or candies or something like that. Spread out within a bread is not gonna do too much, so I feel okay doing this. I also could you substitute honey for it, but I am out of honey at the moment. But, you know, that's all right. We need a little stir, and then we are going to do the same sifting again. Okay, nicely sifted. Now, here's where I had to sit and think about this for a minute. It calls next for add milk, popped corn, egg, and shortening. And in my brain, when I heard popped corn, I made popped corn, which I ended up realizing is correct, because if it wasn't popped corn, it would have said popcorn kernels. There's a distinction there, so yes, pop the corn. It doesn't say anything about salting the corn, it just says 3/4 cup ground popcorn. I'm not entirely sure how you grind popcorn, but I'm not getting my wheat grinder out for it, so I'm just gonna put it through the food processor and call it good. And I'm gonna make the educated guess that it's 3/4 cups after it's been ground, because that's a different measurement than 3/4 cups of non-ground. We're gonna go on a limb here and read the past tense and see what happens. So I'm just gonna, a blender would have been better. I mean, it looks now more like styrofoam balls. Oh man, this is gonna get everywhere. I think I need to do it more, because it's still kind of big. Maybe a blender would have been a better idea. Okay, I turned it on to high this time, and it's definitely better. It doesn't say how finely ground it has to be. I feel like I'm gonna look like that cat that ended up in the beanbag stuffing video at the end of this. This is not real forgiving stuff. Okay, I think this worked well enough. I mean, it's still fairly coarse, but I can't really get it I mean, maybe I could. My Vitamix, my beloved Vitamix, just kicked the bucket yesterday. It was like 15 years old, and it just stopped. I'm so sad because I use it a lot, and they're not cheap. Good investment, though. I'm gonna take another educated guess and say that by grinding up the popcorn and putting it in there, it's gonna hold water, because if you've ever had soggy popcorn or like gotten a piece of popcorn wet, it kind of bloats a little. I don't know. Also, I'm not sure how much this is, so I might end up with a little bit of popcorn fluff. Okay, well, I made too much, and these little particles are flying everywhere. I don't think you can see them on camera, but I am encased. It's snowing. I am encased in a dust storm of popcorn, and I did too much. It got up my nose. Okay, so now I need to add 1 egg, 2 tablespoons of melted shortening, and 1 cup of milk. Okay, so 1 egg. Yes, that's going into the chicken food bucket. I just didn't throw it across my kitchen for fun. There is a reason for that. And I got smart and pre-melted my shortening before I did this, so I didn't have to go and do this mid-video. And a cup of milk. I kind of get the feeling these are going to be a little bland. I'm not entirely sure what, like, who got the, like, was this Grace's idea, or was this just something passed down in the family? Or I mean, it smells like popcorn, faintly. Like, it smells like a very faint popcorn smell. It's really kind of weirding me out. This is not normal. Okay, so that was it for construction. I mean, that was it. I got a muffin batter. And now I need to fill well-oiled muffin tins 2/3 full, bake in a hot oven at, it notates hot oven, 435 degrees. Sometimes these older cookbooks will go low, medium, and hot, or very hot, and there's different ways to test it or tell, but usually a hot oven is anywhere from like 400, 425 and up. 25 minutes, 6 servings. Now, because I want to put some as snacks in my little cake tray, I think I'm gonna use my mini muffin tin and get a few more out of them. So my cooking time might vary a little bit, so I'm just gonna keep an eye on it. So one thing to note though is anytime you use a recipe that calls for baking powder, and a decent amount of it at that, baking powder is activated by water. So if you mix anything of those two things together, like our milk and our baking powder, you're gonna get that bubble carbon dioxide reaction almost immediately, which means if you let it sit for a while, you're gonna let a lot of those bubbles pop that would normally lift your breads, and you'll end up with a little flatter product than you possibly would want. So I'm gonna go grab my muffin tin and hurry and get these in. Okay, so I got these all buttered, and one thing that I like to do when I'm dealing with my mini muffin pan is I put my muffin batter in a piping bag because it's just too messy and hard to use a spoon, in my opinion. Or that's just me and I just am kind of sucky at it. But try this tip. I think it works really, really well. Okay, so I'm just gonna fill these up 2/3 of the way full. I'm gonna go stick these in my oven and I'll let you know how long it took for these. All right, I'll be back. Okay, so even if these taste awful and if they were really ugly too, they still get points for being adorable. I just am a sucker for mini muffins. They are so cute. They're cooled off a little bit. This only took me 10 minutes, not 25. So just make sure you know, if you do this recipe, watch your time. They don't smell remarkable. They smell more like a light cornbread, honestly. But that's not bad because I do like cornbread, but I like it with honey. I'm curious to see how this goes. Okay. I have some thoughts on this. Texture-wise, very fluffy. Very fluffy. For the amount of baking powder in there, this is, yeah, it's a good texture. It's a really nice texture. Now, could we cut back on the baking powder? Yeah, it's a little baking powdery. Like that is almost a prominent flavor. That mixed with the salt, I think I could have cut both of those in half. That also being said, the flavor under the baking soda flavor is pretty good. It's just a light bread. It tastes like a small amount of cornbread. You can't hardly even see any of those popcorn kernels. Like you can kind of see it a little bit. Because I do know that in some cases you can overcome that baking soda flavor with, you know, things like butter or condiments. Butter definitely takes care of that. It's not nearly as stark of a flavor. Okay. I digress. It's a good recipe. Would I still do slightly less of the salt and baking soda? Yeah, just for my own, I think, taste buds wise. However, with the butter and the honey, it tastes fine. It really does taste fine. But to be able to just grab this and go, honestly, it kind of stings my tongue a little bit. I am glad I tried it out. I don't know exactly why we needed the popcorn in here. If you're still here, thank you so much for sticking with me to the end. I really appreciate it. I hope you let me know if you try this recipe, what your thoughts are, and if you do change it up, let me know what you did and how it turned out. Thank you so much for supporting this channel. I really, really appreciate you being here. And I hope you enjoyed your time in my kitchen with me enough. If you haven't already, to join our community, hit the subscribe button, click the little bell notification. We're almost to 1,000 subscribers, which I think is incredible. I mean, this has been kind of one of those channels where I just wanted to have a hobby and create organically and to maybe teach some skills here at some point. And eventually I'm going to be trying to, I don't know, do something a little bit more with it, because not only is experimenting with these recipes really fun, it's also very enlightening, especially with what the world is doing now and what we might have to look forward to and how to eat through it on a budget. All right, well, if you'd like to continue spending more time with me in my kitchen today, please go ahead and click on this link. I hope you enjoyed that video too, and I will see you next time. Bye.